I'm Dorryne, born and raised in Nairobi, Kenya. In 1998, my father, who was working at the American Embassy in Kenya, was killed in a terrorist attack. We grew up in a Christian family, and our day was very simple. Like, we wake up, go to school. We had primary school, which was from like grades kindergarten to grade 8, and then once that's done, you go to high school. And most of us went to boarding schools in Kenya. It was tough going to a boarding school because you had to go there without your parents, and it's not something you're used to. But it kind of makes you who you are. It toughens you up. My mom is an awesome mom. She's just a strong-willed mom, and I think I get that from her. My dad was also, of course, he was there, busy working, but my mom was always there for us. I thank God for my parents. Growing up, my dad started off his career as an accountant. He worked in several other places, but in one particular company he worked for the US Embassy, and that was like the ultimate. Everyone wants to work there. He had reached his career goals because he worked there as a budget analyst. He made it. Like, life was awesome for us. He brought back the bacon, and life was good and sweet for us. I was in my senior year of high school, and there was these rumors going on in the campus. One of the teachers came and said that the embassy in Nairobi was bombed. We had never heard of a bomb before. It was very new to us. And the teacher was telling us that the whole place had been flattened out. I was like, no, my dad works there. So I remember getting into the school office, and tried to call my dad. We didn't have cell phones back then. So I tried calling my dad. I don't know what I was thinking, but I tried calling. The phone just went unanswered. I was just hearing doo-doo-doo. It just went unanswered. I didn't think much about it then because it was unheard of. It was not something that we had ever experienced in our country. I asked for permission to go to my auntie's place because my auntie lived next to the school. And I found my auntie, and I asked her, what's this I'm hearing? She was saying, oh yes. She told me yes, there'd been a bombing in Nairobi. They're trying to look for your dad. It's like an 8-hour drive. You had to travel back overnight to Nairobi so that I could see my dad. I got to the house, I saw my dad's car, and I was like, wow, dad must be home. Little did I know that my dad didn't use his car to work. He took a public transport. They went to work, everything was normal. It was just a Friday. The first explosion happened, and everyone in my dad's office rushed to the window to see what was happening. And that's when the second explosion happened, and it took all of them down. The information was very scanty. No one was able to tell you what was happening. Like, you just had to piece information together. My mom, she had to go looking for my dad in different hospitals because you don't know what the responders did. People just took people inside their cars and took them to whichever hospital they did. No one had time to figure out this hospital or even like have a registry of this person was taken here because they didn't even know who they are carrying at that time. So everyone was just there trying to save lives. When I came back home, I found my dad's car. I was like, my dad is home. I was so happy that, because I saw the car. And I went inside the house. Then I found so many guests. So I was wondering, why do we have so many people in the house? And my mom just saw me and came and gave me a tight hug and was like, Mom, where's Dad? And my mom just looked at me and she was like, I'm sorry, your dad is no more. my dad's face was so mutilated that they couldn't even tell that was him. And my mom had to identify my dad through his legs, like his physical features. You had to look at the toenails, the toes, how they were like, because that's the only way you could tell who your person was. And that's how my mom found my dad. You couldn't even tell that was my dad. Even for me, I had to look like down to know like really that was him. I didn't even cry. I was just in shock. I just took a stroll. I didn't want anyone with me. I just went out, took a stroll, and I was asking God, why? Why would you let this happen? And I was so angry and mad at that time that I didn't want to hear anything to do with God, because I was like, God has the power to make things not happen. Why did he let this happen? And why did my dad have to die? And in such a way, it was so heartbreaking. And I can't even begin to describe what the feeling was like. And so I went back home and we just sat there. We didn't even say anything. We didn't even talk. I looked at my sisters and my brothers and they were so young. At that time, my small sister was only 3. And I was like, she's gonna grow up without a daddy. How? All of a sudden, my mom has to take care of us, and my mom didn't even know where to start from. I mean, she was all confused. She was so confused. But yeah, it was a tough one. It was tough, yeah. At first, when they told us it was a terror attack in Kenya, we didn't know what happened. And the embassy brought in FBI from the States. We had the Israeli bring in their people. They started doing the investigations, and we found that a group of people sat down and planned. I mean, how do you sit down to plan such a thing, How do you sit down to plan how to make a bomb? And looking at the time, because the time the embassy was bombed, it was around 11 in the morning. That's when everyone is in the office, everyone is busy. I mean, it was peak hours during in an office. And then they did that simultaneously, because I remember both the embassy in Kenya and the embassy in Tanzania were bombed all at the same time. So someone sat down to just, do all this. How do you do that? Later on, they came up and told us it was the Al-Qaeda. We didn't even know what Al-Qaeda was. We didn't even know what that meant. We were just innocent Kenyans, like going by our day, and that was very heartbreaking to find out that. The first time I went to the embassy to work there, it was a very interesting experience, because I had to meet some of my dad's colleagues. I remember in my dad's office, we only had 2 people who survived. One of them survived because she was on leave, she was out, and the other one survived, but he lost his sight. He had all these metals in his body because he was all broken up. I worked with this girl in our office, and anytime she had a loud bang, she would like duck and cover under the desk. Anytime she had an alarm going off, she was so terrified. Even when we did fire drills, the embassy is very big in doing fire drills, bomb drills. We had all these drills, and people didn't like them. They didn't take it lightly because it reminded them of what happened. After my dad died, a year later, I remember it was in April. My young sister, got very sick. And she unfortunately passed away the year after my dad passed away. And it was nerve-wracking. That for our family was a big blow, We were like, God, so for how long is this gonna happen? So are you just gonna take one of us at a time every year? Is this way it's going to happen? 3 years after the bombing, we had the 9/11, and my heart just sank. When I looked at the news and saw that the Twin Towers was bombed, and I remembered the traffic in that building, the underground trains, and the massive amount of people that visit that place, is just, it took me back to 1998, and it was so hurtful. It's like a wound that was closed up and all of a sudden it's open again. And I realized ever since that day, anytime I hear of a terror attack, it takes me back. It takes me back to that day. It's been 20 years right now, and I still feel so emotional talking about it. I went to a boarding school, so I didn't spend too much time with my father. I would have loved to spend a little bit of more time with him. It hit me hard was when I was getting married. As a girl, I always dreamt that my dad would walk me down the aisle, and he was just not there. But I'm sure he was looking at us, and he was happy. He was happy. I remember trying to run away from God. I did. I was like, God, I'm done with you. That's it. We're not doing this anymore. When people tell you, that God has a reason why he allowed it, at that time you're like, what are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? He has a reason as to allow people to die, but you still need God. And for me, I think, and my family, what really helped us so much was we had a strong foundation in believing in God, and we were deeply rooted in God, and I just had to go back. I think it's a normal process to doubt and question God, but you should not just stay there. You need to figure out how to move on from there. And for me, moving on was just going back and trusting him again, and just asking him to take us through this whole journey and to try and heal us. He understands. To be honest, I still trust God. I don't know how to live without God. I don't know any other life, because I tried it. I tried being on the other side of the fence, and trust me, it's not pretty. The devil has nothing to offer. I think God has been able to give me peace, because peace doesn't mean there's no chaos. It just means that you're peaceful amongst all the chaos that's happening in your life, And for me, holding on to God, I know it sounds weird, but I just hold and put my trust in God. One thing I've realized with any traumatic incidents, you have to try and take your life back to normal at some point, because you cannot just sit there and dwell with it. When you go through a traumatic experience, don't shout other people out. I'm sure at first you just want to sit down and keep it to yourself, because you're so mad. You want to close yourself in, and I think that's one thing that the devil uses to keep you by yourself, and he will put all these thoughts in you, and I think for me that's how some of the people get depressed. It's good to talk about it. It's good to remember, sit down there, talk about it, talk about the person who's died or the incident itself. Find some humor in it. Yeah, it's funny, but it's true. and just it's easier to go through it. And I also get a lot of help, like counseling. You can come to mommy and daddy, but also you can trust in God. I'm trying to teach my kids that right now. I told Sasha about the whole incident. She was like, oh, you grew up without your dad? She was so hurt and all that, but I told her, yeah, we didn't know it was going to happen, but you have to trust God. Trust in God. If that incident didn't happen then, I will not be in Sugarland. I will not be here. I will not have met all these people. It all ties up, like from that event to me working at the embassy, to me coming here. What you do with your life is what matters. You cannot control what other people are doing, but what you do with your life matters. Live at the moment. Love your loved ones at the moment. And I'm grateful because there's so much that is still unwritten, untold. You have to trust God. Trust in God.